Roll call is when we just roll call around the table. I'll start as the Parks Commissioner. Laura Raines, Commissioner.
Lauren Wilson, just the guy out.
I'm Julie from Commissioner.
Daniel Sager, Commissioner.
Sinead Williams, Commissioner.
Darcy Montalvo, Human Services Division Manager, Anchorage Health Department.
Jed Drolet, Anchorage Health Department.
Chase Burgrave, Anchorage Health Department.
Kyle Milkey, Anchorage Health Department.
Frankie Dahl, Commission Staffer.
And online.
Kimberly White, Program Manager, Housing and Homelessness.
Lila Taylor, I'm the Housing Services Division Manager with the Anchorage Health Department.
For staff, any of the guests, Sam or Taylor, want to unmute and introduce yourself?
This is Sam Longacre with the United Way of Anchorage. Hi everyone, this is Taylor Donovan with Rural Cap.
Alright.
This is Thea Agnew Bembem with the Mayor's Office. I'm on my way over there. Be there soon.
Thanks, Thea. Alright, moving through our agenda. We have approval of the agenda, the order of business. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Motion. Second. I'll take a minute to review our agenda. Any opposition to approval of that motion? Hearing none, our agenda is approved. Next we have approval of the minutes. They're attached on the back here. Thank you so much, Frankie, for the packet. Can I get a motion to approve our minutes that we have? I'll second. And take a second to review the minutes. Any edits or notes anyone would like to propose? Any opposition to approval of the motion to approve the minutes? Hearing none, that is also approved. Disclosures, just conflicts of interest?
Yes.
All right. Anyone have any disclosures or conflicts of interest to share prior to moving into our action items? We have one action item. We have a resolution that was drafted that is a resolution from our commission that is supporting a municipal sanctioned campground pilot program. So we have a draft of the resolution here in front of us. It's resolution 2026-01. We've had some conversation about this particular item last year and into the start of this year about support for the findings of the sanctioned camp or allowed camps community task force that was stood up and had a report in 2025. So this resolution just has some whereas statements that talks about that history of sanctioned or allowed camping in our community. Talks about the ordinance 2025-74, which prohibited camping on public premises, but allowed this as an alternative to that, to allow places for campers to go. The recommendation of this commission, and the recommendation is laid out in this resolution, is that there be 3 separate campgrounds established. Those campgrounds would be divided up into subpopulations of men, women, and families. And then there's some statements about what services and what amenities would be offered at that particular site based on our recommendations. A secured fenced area, 24-hour security, sectioned off allotted space for each client along with secured storage, and then providing rigid tents for people to be staying in. Some guidance on some rules and how referrals and connection to those services would be made. So, opening the floor to any discussion, or should we have a motion first?
Motion to approve and then discussion, and any changes would be a subsidiary motion, yeah.
So, is there a motion to approve this resolution for conversation and discussion?
Oh, motion.
I'll second. Alright, open for discussion. Anyone who has any amendments can propose amendments to this resolution during this time.
Are we allowed to discuss or ask questions? Okay.
Yep, and this is the time for
So I have a couple of questions. Just clarify, so this is just going to be open May and the end of September. So just kind of wondering about that. And then I looked at the LIP design, which often urban structures, and they're very similar to those pallet type structures or like simplified structure. So my wondering, or my thinking, is why would we want to invest all this money into time and operating costs to make something that will be closed at the end of September, and not have something, and not invest our time and energy into something that will be open year round and maybe have space for year-round types of housing. So that was a concern, and we've talked with, talked to different people about that. So that was a big area of concern for me. Why would we spend this money over temporary shelters that have to be taken down? Yeah, so that was a big question.
And I'm not,
So I think it says in here this is a pilot program, since there has not been a sanctioned program like this before. This is the, yes, it might feel like it's a risk for money potentially lost, but I think it's also the opportunity to like, is this actually doable here? And if you have the right protocols and protections in place, is this something that is more sustainable that allows for harm reduction models? That's my read of the situation. I should say, that's my interpretation.
I have questions. So, my understanding of the resolution is that it's more or less documenting a resolution from the HHAND Commission.
Is there anything that says that this is gonna actually be done? I mean,
It would be just going to the assembly and the administration and like.
As a recommendation.
Yeah.
right, that's right. And so should it say will or should? Well, it will have a central cooking. Should it say should or will?
Yeah, the language is gonna be tough, how that's worded. Cause obviously we don't have any, authority.
Right.
Yeah, or money.
Right. That's what I was wondering, is that, you think it should say will?
Yeah, because it's future, so.
But what if they say no?
Yeah.
Because it's so strong, you know, we can do all of this except we can't do X.
That language, this proposal is still less, less cost intensive and administrative intensive than the assembly information memorandum. So like the kitchen and food stuff that they prepared is significantly more in-depth, and I think probably safer in the long run, but still so I don't think that will be the language that prevents us from moving forward.
Yeah, and I think I would add that, this would be a recommendation being made. The administration or the assembly or both could say, we agree with these points, we disagree with these points. I think the language is intended to be what are we recommending? If this were to go into place, what should be, like how should this be structured? And then from there, if there's funding allocated and they determine that they want to try this out, then I think there would be further conversation about what that structure could look like.
And with that being said, I think something should be added that we recognize that this is not a permanent solution to homelessness, that this is a temporary. I don't think that's in there anywhere. That this is temporary. We don't think this is gonna solve the problem.
And another question, yeah, I just lost my thought, was, sorry.
That was your
When-
chance.
Yes, I can come back. One little question was, my thought is, if it's a pilot, 3 separate campgrounds with 30 people each is huge, and just my experience with 8 people in a small project, that's a lot. I really want to be successful. I think that's way too many people. But there was something else that struck me, and it's gonna come back. Okay. Did you find something?
I just curious, is this conversation on the commissioners or is there kind of
Up to you.
Yeah, I think we could have feedback from other people who are with us.
Okay, cool. So I guess one thing I wanted everyone to be aware of is that the recommendations from the Sanction Campaign Task Force were partly what led to the micro units project that we developed. So kind of preparing for what we're gonna do, in terms of like when we started, when the mayor started, we looked at that task force, and then at the same time there was a complex behavioral health task force set of recommendations that actually kind of reference the Sanction Campaign because they had some of the same. And so the idea for the micro units that we have built are from these reports. And the reason that we went with the project that we did and not what's being recommended in this resolution were kind of many things. We did about kind of 6 to 8 months of like interviewing. We interviewed the folks that live in our backyard. We talked to pallet shelter. We talked to people who conversion containers like this, blah, 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 right? And really what we came down to is with a tent, and I guess now you're talking about hard-sided structures here?
Yes, yeah, or
Yes.
there's different designs on them, I'm sure you see a
Okay,
lot more.
yeah,
But
so
yeah, it's got a
hard-sided
door.
structures are key, right, because the bears and
just personal safety. So that was one thing. The other thing is that, I also went through like sort of 8-10 month process to try and identify a location where we could do the micro units. So that work has kind of happened of like looking at all new land. In the RFP, we also asked community providers to come forward with their own land, kind of like in our backyard did. We didn't get any, we got 12 bids, none of them came to their own bid. So that kind of tells me that you're kind of looking at community land, or, what I've been doing also for the last like 6 months is bringing faith communities together pretty regularly. And one of the things we could ask them is like, hey, do you guys want to do another in our backyard? Because we'll help. And so far, new takers, I think, if we had a line on, we've got money and we're going to build new units and we're ready to go, maybe somebody would step forward. But I guess the other piece that I just really want to emphasize is that with the micro units project, I guess two main things. One, turned out we were able to build that project very quickly. So we got under contract in October, ribbon cutting in December, we added 8 more units, all of that's done by like mid-January, like quick as could be. The process to get an operator under contract, like I am literally spending hours every day trying to make that happen. Because it's really hard. Like and Julie knows because she's doing it. It's the human part of it. You guys are all service providers. You know how hard that is. When you have a project like this, you have to have it staffed. Like in the market, we're asking you to nighttime staff every day, right? Because you have to maintain a safe environment for people. That's where the expense is, and it's really expensive. And so again, why we went with the project that we did with the micro units is the behavioral health treatment program. So there's some opportunity for them to bill after they expend the startup money that we have to offer, and that's what's going to sustain the program. There isn't money in the 2026 budget for any new projects, and we are going to be scraping every couch cushion to just support the shelter beds that we have currently for 2027. So I guess I just want to bring that to you to just say, like, I want you to know nobody like shelved that information can't be task force. Like literally, I was like, what do we do with this? Because it's a great idea. In our backyard is a great idea. I hope our micro units will soon be functioning and awesome. But it's not easy to make it happen. It takes a ton of coordination. It takes somebody in the community being willing to own it and operate it. And it's not currently on anybody's radar to do that. So I'd say, I don't want to be a downer, but I'd say there's no way this can happen this summer. Like, literally none. Maybe it could happen next summer, but that would also require a group to really champion it and secure their funding. And I guess the last thing I want to say is that what we have done, like what we did last summer, for example, when we had people who maybe had a car in RVs, they didn't want to, you can go to shelter with those things. But there are campgrounds in the municipality, right? Some are municipally run, some are private. There are parks that are open year round. And so what we did last summer, quite frequently actually, was working with Penny Peterson and the Neighbor Fund, we would help support somebody getting into a campground, right? And so then they can, you help them do the first month or the first 2 months, and then they hopefully can kind of carry on their own. And then the beauty there is it's not municipally run, people are subject to those rules, but, one thing that I think would potentially be something you might want to consider is Centennial Park is a municipally operated campground, super nice. Currently it has a rule that you can only have one 14-day stay there per year. So it's not only that you can only stay for 14 days, but you can't come back after that. So that's something you might want to consider, is asking for that rule to be changed. I don't even know if that's an assembly level thing. It might be a Parks and Rec level thing, but it doesn't hurt to go through the assembly because that's, your commission. So that's one thing to think about, and I honestly think that the most productive way to help people, if they really do want to camp, safely camp is to be in a campground. And that we don't necessarily have the ability to lift that this summer, but they exist. And helping people get into them is, I think, a really nice way to achieve something similar to what you're looking for, but without all the expensive coordination and all the things. The other thing to think about is there another entity that's not the muni? Maybe it's a church, maybe it's a private landowner who's willing to support this project. And is there somebody who's willing to champion it and help make it happen? That's where maybe the muni brings the money to the table, potentially, if we could, but we don't necessarily own it. Because once the muni owns something, you know, the health department can tell you, like, the contractor is subject to all of our oversight. And it's hard, like, not getting them, like, it's not easy, right? So, just some things for you to consider as you consider this idea, because I want you to know, I totally get the journey I went on with this idea. Yeah.
So I would just share, I think some of what prompted this was that there needs to be a lower barrier option. The options that exist right now are very high barrier. And so a lower barrier option for someone who can't or won't go to a congregate shelter or even to a non-congregate shelter where they have to share a room and, you know, have different types of engagement. I think the idea was there needs to be a space where we can tell people they can go instead of telling them all the places they can't go. I agree with finding somebody who is championing this, but I think we have to get it out in the open to get someone to champion it. And I think that was some of the underlying idea of this resolution, was getting it out there, getting it on the public record, that this is something that we are discussing in this commission, and that we want to continue the discussion bigger with potential providers, with potential clients who might be wanting to participate in something like this. I think that's something that is missing, that we don't have that feedback of someone, you know, is this a, if you build it, they will come, or will people say that's not in any way, shape, or form what I wanted? So I think it was intended to open the conversation bigger and get it on the record.
Thank you for that, by the way. Does the muni have a plan for this summer for campers or for the people that kind of fall in the middle? I know that there's more shelter beds now, from what I understand, and they're going to be year round. Is there an anticipated number of, like what the delta is between people that are going to be camping and then the shelter bed capacity?
You know, as you know, the demand number is hard to pin down.
Yeah.
We will soon have some better numbers after the head count. I can tell you right now, we're doing very everyday coordination around identifying people who are outside, doing outreach, all the things. And of course, like Jessica, their office receives people, we have people in the safety center. So I think our plan for the summer is to continue all of that, continue our year-round shelter, and then Jed, I think, is going to present today on some of the housing options that we have starting up. I was just in a meeting with all the shelter providers just about an hour ago, and like they're like using some of the home funds that they have from CSD. They're going to be moving, I think they said 30 people out of East 56 into housing just in the next like couple of weeks. So I mean, that's really our game plan, is to continue to really try and help move people who can be more stable, move into more stable situations, whether that's higher levels of care, like assisted living, housing, home to family. We got a mom and her 8 kids home to Seattle like last week. We got a guy to treatment last week. So we're continuing to do that work and have the year-round shelter available. So that's really our plan. And we, you know, as you know, this administration doesn't support camping as a strategy. I mean, we really do want to reduce the work of the system, but it's very unsafe.
Right.
and I appreciate your feedback too. I think it would be good, if everybody that served on that commission knew that. Because I was one of the ones that served on that commission and I didn't connect the dots, that that's why those things were done. I think it would be good that if that came out, I mean, we spent a lot of time and it would be good to know that it wasn't all for nothing.
Yeah.
So something coming out saying the sanction camp led to these things being done. But I agree with Jessica, I think it's just a matter of not stating that the city hasn't done anything, because I think all of us know that there's a lot has been done, but there still remains something to be done. And having somewhere for the people that are not gonna be served with the existing, locations, you still need something else. And I don't know what that's gonna be, but I think that's the way I look at this, and say the problem is not solved. And it is not to say the city hasn't done anything, I don't think that's not my intent, to say that the city hasn't done anything.
No, I'm not being defensive at all, and I'm excited for other people to bring other ideas, and especially other champions and willingness to fundraise and do things. I mean, that's what it takes. So, yeah, I'm totally happy about it. I just want to be upfront about like my experience with this and kind of where the administration is.
When I think about, church is taking on or something, it seems like that's an easy idea, but it is, like you said, is that people, we're all volunteers and that's a hard thing, and the building it was the easy part. It's the people, and we're high barrier, and I'm always learning so much about all the struggles people go on and have to deal with long-term alcohol abuse and other mental health issues and drug issues from the past. And so it's a lot of daily work on community building, really. And so to make something like this really work, you really do need to have someone that has the time and the energy to build this small communities so people can start looking out for each other. That's why when I think 30 people or 3 of them, that's 90 people, that's a lot, but it is a really, really difficult because some of the people I talk to that have been camping in the woods, they don't really want, not all people obviously, but they kind of want to be off by themselves a little bit, so then bring them into, it looks pretty small area with all these things. I don't know, with a community building, I'm not sure. It's just, yeah, it's really, really difficult to figure out how to say places for people to be. We don't want them camping in green spaces and
Right.
on trails and that kind of thing. And, yeah.
Do we anticipate PD like strictly enforcing the camping ban this summer? Or specifically for the people that do not want to interact with services in any way?
We're going to continue what we're doing now, which is we get reports around camping, like for example, last night, Christopher Carson said he 3 different locations. So I texted our health safety team and our PPE team to take them out and look, they engage people there. So that's what we're going to continue to do. And so within those areas that are identified in the ordinance, where health safety, yeah, there will be areas. I mean, that's our goal.
Okay.
Yeah. And we'll continue to do what we've been doing, which is really trying to get services we have. But again, I fully admit and agree with you that those don't work for everybody.
Well, and I think, to be really honest, even the services that would work for people who are outside, there's not enough of them. There are dozens of people who want to go shelter and can't go shelter. I mean, let's all be real honest. There's dozens of people that wait outside of the door, and there's dozens of people entering homelessness every single month. So if our outflow, if the people going to permanent housing situations is not at least keeping up with the inflow, it doesn't matter if we're not increasing the resources that we have. And we haven't been. I don't anticipate that changing this summer. Usually it gets a little bit worse because people come here to work seasonally and then find they can't afford the housing or they can't find the housing. And so they end up camping because that's what they do. So, Sinead, you had a potential amendment. I think there's two different places we could put that in. We could add a whereas statement, just at the end that identifies whereas the HHAND Commission identifies that this is not, or acknowledges that this is not a solution to homelessness, however, can meet the needs of some individuals. Or it could be in the section at the very end where it says, be it further resolved that the HHAND Commission stands ready to work with the mayor and assemblies, blah, blah, blah. It could be in either one of those places. I don't know where to put it. And then, so I guess you would be making a motion to amend.
Subsidiary motion to amend,
Subsidiary
yeah.
motion.
I move to amend. Language to include that the commission recognized this is not a permanent solution to homelessness, to address homelessness. And of course, it could be worksmith.
Second. I don't know if you just saw that. Sam just asked if we could shut the window.
Those windows don't shut.
Oh.
They don't open, they don't shut. It's just the road noise for the room, unfortunately. Sorry about that, Sam.
Sorry, Sam. It's just
Yeah.
traffic.
Yeah.
We have a second. Okay. Any further discussion?
I just have one other question about the sanction camps. One of the things that came out of that too was mailboxes for people. Is that addressed in anything? To have a location where people could pick up mail? Because I think that was identified as one of the
It wasn't,
things.
I'm gonna say, it wasn't addressed in a very specific, like, and we therefore call for this to be a centralized mail location. But one of the things that did, I'll put on a different hat right now, that did come out of that was, the coalition recognized that was a need. And we have hundreds of people get their mail at our offices. In fact, it was kind of funny. The mailman was pounding on my window as I was trying to leave, and he's like, "I got some mail for you." That's nice. We have a lock and file cabinet. Got someone's check yesterday. Like, we get mail. We put notes in HMIS when someone has mail. When it's important mail, like a check, I usually take the time to stop and look up and find where they are and give a call out to that particular shelter if they're outside to outreach and like, hey, let Joe know they have a check. It wasn't Joe. So we did do that, and we have a lot of people who use our site for mail. I know that the downtown or Fairview, I guess, mail where you would normally get general delivery has had some real challenges with that, so I hope we've been able to help alleviate some of that. I haven't heard anything new recently, but the postmaster down there for a while was hot, but, so I hope that helped with some of it too, and then, we hopefully have been able to, help encourage shelters to let people get mail at their shelter as well. It sometimes is a little bit hard to track with people coming in and out, but whenever there's unclaimed mail, we're always happy to put those notes in there as well. So it didn't necessarily come from it explicitly, but we 100% read that report and said, hey, this is a real need. Thank you. We can vote on the subsidiary motion. Any opposition to adding
Just
that?
A quick clarification, this was the very last whereas statement?
Yeah.
We didn't, okay.
Yep. Any opposition to adding that language in? Hearing no opposition, we have amended the resolution. Is there any further discussion, or are we ready to vote on the amended resolution now?
I'm still, as like this in my booking, would it be better if we had a resolution that stated that we want more permanent indoor shelter rather than sanctioned camping? Would that be better to have a counter resolution to look at and invest more energy into looking for other properties that we could have as another year-round shelter? Can we do that instead or next month or, because I'm really struggling with this, but I see where it's coming from and I understand and I just don't feel like it's safe. I mean, I know we want it to be safe and want it to do all those things, but I don't know. Is that a possibility?
Yeah, anything is really a possibility. I think the intent of this resolution, though, was to address the report from the Allowed Camp, I will call it Sanctioned Camps Forever, Allowed Camps Community Task Force. I think it was intended to really kind of close that loop of that work and acknowledge the work that happened and the thoughts from this commission related to that. I don't think that anyone would disagree that we should be looking at all options.
But isn't this saying that if we support the religious order that we are, well, I don't think that's ancient camps, or is it not?
Yes, no, that would, this resolution would be saying this commission wants to have sanctioned camps. And that's what we will all get to vote. I would say that's vote no, yeah, like we don't, nothing, it doesn't have to be unanimous.
Could we vote to support greenbelt camping? Would that be an option? Maybe the alternative to where the people are gonna go, yeah.
Well, there's a thing that ordinance that doesn't allow it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think at that point, there would be a resolution asking for that. I will say, not necessarily related to this resolution, but I jotted down the note, I would really like to invite Parks and Rec to come and talk to us about Centennial. And their willingness to be able to, waive that 14-day limit, because I can tell you that last summer, I don't know if I'm gonna tell on anyone here, last summer there was a family that was camping at Centennial and did that 14 days and got their notice that they needed to leave. And we didn't even find out about them until that literally day 13. And we worked with Parks and Rec to say, hey, now that we know, can we have some time to be able to help, get them on some shelter wait lists and talk about that. And we were able to do that. So I think that, hearing from them, there's a new director, and having that conversation with them, I think would be really valuable for us. Just to know, I hear you, Thea, that this is likely to not move anywhere. And so understanding that we don't just say, well, we said we should do this, and now, oh well, we're gonna continue as a commission to keep working and keep exploring other options and make other recommendations too.
I actually have an idea. There's a RV park in Midtown. It's like right between where we live. And I've met with those folks a couple times. They need support, they just have some stuff going on with their property that, they just reached out. And I didn't have a great answer for them, but I just think that's an operation that's already in place. They have extra space, so they have spots that are not currently used. It also does exist year round. It has, sanitation and if you have an RV, into it. So just a thought that, you know, figuring out like that's a business, but again, a business that needs some help. So if there was a way of like, how to better utilize the application and maybe helping meet some of their needs, and that's just something I want to bring forward since you're talking about camping energies.
I have a quick comment. I think it should move forward as a pilot. So whenever we get to it, because like, if it goes forward as a pilot, at some point we get the data, we get the real data. Like, this is what a safe camp is. This is how can we manage it? Can we even do it? So I think that will take that question off the table. So that's why I'm supportive of trying to move forward.
Well, let's go ahead and vote. Should it be a roll call?
Really
vote?
quickly, just want to check in to see if Commissioner Baker has
Oh,
anything
sorry.
she wanted to add to the conversation.
Thank you, Frankie. I don't have any additional comments. Thank you.
Okay. Then, yeah, my recommendation would be to call for the vote, and we would do one by one in this instance and just say yes or no.
Alright. Should I do a roll call vote? Or do you want to do a roll call vote?
I can do it. All right, so we are voting on this resolution. Jessica?
Yes.
All right. Shanae?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Marvin?
Yes.
Okay. Daniel?
Yes.
Julie? No? Wait. No, okay. Sorry, I thought I saw you shake your head. Yes, I was like, oh. Laura? And Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, with a vote of 7-1, this resolution passes.
We did our first resolution for 2026, so exciting.
Good job, guys.
Moving to informational items, ongoing business. We have an update from Housing and Homelessness. Not sure who was taking that. Lillian or Laura.
What was that? It was a little muffled for me. Was there a
Sorry
question?
about
I
that.
apologize.
We made it to informational items, and so we have the update from Housing and Homelessness part.
I think the
There she
only
All right.
updates that we have right now is we are still in process with the provider for Willow Commons, which is the micro units. So things are still moving with that. We still have all of our surge beds activated at both Linda's Place and East 56 because this weather is ridiculous and needs to stop being so dang cold. So we have currently 200 beds at 56, 150 beds at Linda's Place, and then the 100 beds at the non-congregate shelter, which is the Alex. We do not have a definitive decompression timeline date for those surge beds yet, but those conversations are happening. I know personally my biggest concern is I don't remember it ever being negative anything in March, and that's where we're still at. So just trying to be mindful of the weather while we're getting that all figured out. That's all that I have. Kimberly, did you have anything else to add?
No, not this time. I don't.
Okay. I'm probably forgetting something, but that's all that I can think of right now.
No worries. Thank you so much. Next, we have the update from CSD.
Yeah, so I'm gonna have a presentation here for our public hearing, which is the next item, for our substantial amendments on the rehab program. But first, I'll give some updates on some other things we have going on. We have a lot going on. I presented a few things at the Assembly Housing and Homelessness Committee meeting, so you can go back and look at the recording for that on the community's YouTube channel to see some of the details. One thing I want to emphasize is our supportive housing RFP is going out imminently, hopefully today, maybe tomorrow, and that's for 1.35 million for supportive housing services. Can be either at existing locations or new locations, but it is operating money rather than capital. And that's a mix of HUD, home ARP funding, and municipal general funds. So keep an eye out for that. RFGP, request for grant proposals. It's going to be open for 21 days, and so we're expecting that will close March 26th for anyone who's interested in applying. Another thing we have going on is a voucher carve-out program with Alaska Housing Finance Corporation, where we're expecting to be able to offer about 40 vouchers a year to people who are moving directly from homelessness into housing. We tend to be calling that the homelessness to housing voucher program. And we're setting that up with HFC and meeting with shelter providers and case managers to get their feedback and make sure that we set that up in a way that's really going to be most productive. So that is also moving forward. And then we are going to soon be starting our 2026 action plan process where we allocate our funding from HUD for 2026. This is the earliest that we have started this process since I've been here. And we are expecting to have our first public hearing for that on March 18th. And that's going to be a public hearing that we have to gather information and ideas before we draft the action plan. So we won't have a draft of the plan to review at that one. There will be a subsequent second public hearing with a draft to review. We are planning to combine this public hearing with the one that we're required to do for our consolidated annual performance evaluation report, or CAPER, which we submit to HUD every year. And so we will have that document for review posted next week, and we're going to use the same public hearing for both. That one is going to be at the Lusac Library, Older Marston Theater, 6 p.m. on March 18th. So I can answer any questions about any of those things, and then we can move on to the public hearing.
So would it be possible for me to go before your public hearing?
Yeah, we can, if the commission's okay with that.
My dad's.
Oh.
Apologies for, I am scooting out because of childcare today, so.
Lots of adjustments.
Thank you.
Do we need anything formal to shift that?
No, you still have,
agenda?
oh, to shift the agenda, yes.
To put- to-
A motion to, yeah, amend
Need
the
a
order of
motion
business.
to move the update from the mayor's office ahead of the public hearing for that housing repair and rehabilitation. Second? Perfect. Any opposition to changing the agenda? Hearing none, go ahead, Via.
Great, I don't have a ton to add to what Lila and Deb just shared. Wanted folks to know that we are continuing to operate the safety center as our kind of lowest barrier place where people can go 24/7. We have a second location open right now for overflow beds. We have additional 25 beds there. We don't want the safety center to get to the point where they're turning people away. And last night, again, due to the full temps, both of those were full. So we will keep our overflow location open, until the really full temps end. We already talked about the micro units, hot on that. We've started to really try and re-engage around people who evacuated from Anchorage due to the typhoon lawn, because people are now, many people have moved from hotels into housing, and there's a lot of support needs coming up. So all sorts of things that you can imagine. So we've been kind of just trying to bring partners together to understand how we can provide better connections to the resources we have in Anchorage, because of course people are coming, from a totally different part of the state. They don't really know where and how to connect. So how can we provide that better connection? And then just, I think our struggle the whole time has been really wanting to be guided by people from the communities that were most affected. And that's just been hard, because state's in charge, there's a lot going on. So, we started that process again, which I think has been good, and I can report back as we learn more. One of our priorities this year, and just did share some kind of the mechanisms, but we really want to increase the like very affordable housing units. So like the micro units were kind of like a trial run of like how do you get more units produced quickly that can be deployed. Of course, the micro unit is not something anyone's going to live in for a long time, so we want to do similar process but for actual housing units. So we're starting to kind of work that through internally in terms of thinking about muni land, thinking about zoning changes, thinking about how we can work with producers, bring some of our resources, get other money. So again, kind of can report back more on that, but I think that's something we're working on. We also are continuing to just kind of make sure we're using our mini facilities as much as we can, and you all probably know that the Grove facility that's out by the airport has been vacant for a while. We have a new director of community development and work development services, Otto, who's great, and he's been in the community and Otto. Yeah. So he's kind of pushing ahead on some of the things that have been, kind of languishing, like the road. So we've got some meetings coming up. I hope we can get that building back online. A small thing we're trying to do. We are doing like a book drive for our shelters. One of the things the health department identified when we went on a visit there one night was like, not a whole heck of a lot to do here. So we've got some community donations of books, the mobile library, we met with the library. On Monday, Jessica was there, also some of our community partners. Also trying to think about how can we do more pop-ups and resource fairs in library locations, so that people who are going there during the day can get easy access to our services. We're working with the library from that, and then also getting them out to our shelter locations too. I think that's probably the big ones. Anything I missed or questions people have?
Thea, would you mind talking about the tiny homes in conjunction with some of the mobile home parks? Because I just think that's such a great idea.
Yeah, that was something, so we made some code changes. So previous to these code changes, if you have a mobile home, you're basically screwed. You can't really replace it with anything that's affordable. So we made these really great code changes, which say that now you can build any kind of building structure that is allowable by code. You can put onto a temporary foundation and use it in a relocatable dwelling unit. So that's a new opportunity, and so we've been meeting. We went out and met with a big mobile home park owner, Rangeview, and they're super excited to get more people into their units. We met with a woman whose kind of small business is to rehab trailers and to build new ones. So that's something that I think is part of this overall strategy of like, how do we really increase supply of very affordable, modular, however we can do it, small homes that could go into trailer parks, but they also could go on permanent foundations in lots on people's properties. So yeah, is that what you're getting at? Okay, great, yeah.
What was you mentioned something about after the micro units, there's like another size that you said you were looking at with some developers.
Yeah, just this whole idea of like, how do we create permanent housing units, but with a similar type of production. Some of the building habits and doors, it's kind of a more modular.
So it'd be mods.
Yeah.
Okay. Do they have a vision for like if it was individual or like multi-families that would be like?
We would love to have a few different configurations. So you could go from like a studio unit to ones with more bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you're familiar with, ACDA has been looking at this producer in China. And so they brought one of those units here. It's on their property on Fireweed Lane. And on Fridays they're offering tours, so if you want to go check it out. We've had like numerous builders and also of course the building services department went through and looked at all the, compared it to our code. And what's challenging is Anchorage has a pretty robust code. compared to other parts of the state, even other parts of the municipality. So Eagle River and Birdwood have a slightly lesser code requirements. And so to make one of those units work here is gonna require a lot of modification. But the cool part was that local builders looked at that Chinese produced unit and was like, we could make this. So that's what I'm kind of focused on, is like, how can we find those builders? Visitor, I think, is one of them that built the micro units, but I know there are others who want to build units that could meet our code requirements and that could be produced kind of at scale, because we need more units, especially at that kind of very affordable part of the market.
And this would be, like Brandon says, that these are not being for sale.
Well, I think what we're to do is like, and Jen should just take the time and walk you through like the things that we're proposing, because those are some options that would help potentially bring some money to it. And then we were totally talking to other money too, to help kind of prime them up. But I think ultimately what we want to see is that there's a market for these, and that, you know, somebody who's a producer could have a business. And there are businesses already. There's Zach does actually container conversions, and there are people kind of trying to make this happen, but we want to prime the pump.
And in terms of multifamily versus single family, there's a manufacturer out in the valley that does 6-panel homes, and they have a duplex and a triplex model, which is pretty cool.
AIP,
The what?
is it AIP?
Is that the Nana owned one? Okay, I think we're planning to meet with them. I think the difficulty has been that those don't meet Anchorage codes. But that's what we want to talk to them about, is like, could they modify it so it would, like, is that something they would consider?
And the university is doing some studies with them too, and doing some of the testing, so I think they might have a good idea of what the deficiencies were and how we might be able to get around it. But there are some pretty cool multifamily options, and something that exists, not in active use in our state right now, but there is a type of Section 8 product that exists, which is a home ownership voucher, where you can have that type of assistance to actually pay for an ownership interest in a property. So there's some pretty cool options out there. There's some products through the BIA that can be used for down payment assistance and like renovation assistance that can help homeowners as well. So I think there's some really cool ideas out there that once we have the ability to have these types of units, I think we can explore the financing side of it pretty easily. Any other questions for the public hearing time?
Before we do public hearing, you might want to just vote to extend the meeting a little, because it might kind of bump up against.
Oh, okay.
5:30.
All right.
It's just because I know we do have some stuff after this on the agenda.
How long do you think we'll?
Let's say 15, extend to 5:45.
Okay, can I get a motion to extend to 5:45?
Move to extend.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any opposition to extending 15 minutes? Hearing none? All right. Now, take it away,
All right.
public hearing.
Thank you.
Oh, hold on.
I am also signed into Teams, so you could share it from mine. If that might be
Sure, from yours.
from your laptop.
Oh, yeah, go for it. That would be helpful, thank you.
Okay. So this is the public hearing for the 2021 Action Plan Substantial Amendment number 5 and the 2025 Action Plan Substantial Amendment number 1. This is our process of reallocating some of our HUD funding for this new residential rehab and repair program. We actually originally had this public hearing scheduled for a couple weeks ago, and we had some technical difficulties, so we rescheduled it here. And this actually has the nice result of being able to present to the commission and the public more effectively. So I'm Jed Drolet, Community Systems Program Manager at the Anchorage Health Department. I manage our entitlement HUD funds. It's going to give a brief overview of the HUD planning process and where this fits in procedurally, and then we'll talk about the details of the program such as we have it worked out so far. So we do really 3 documents: a 5-year consolidated plan that sets our overall goals for the funding that we get, and our current one covers 2023 through 2027. Then each year we do an annual action plan that identifies specific projects consistent with those goals and allocates our funding to those projects. And then we do a consolidated annual performance and evaluation report, or CAPER, reporting on the results of the funding that we've allocated and spent each year. The programs covered by this process are Community Development Block Grant, that's our best known program, Home Investment Partnerships Program, Emergency Solutions Grant, and so we sometimes get funding from the state, from the National Housing Trust Fund. Oh yeah, so the QR code here is this is a new thing we added to the presentation with a cute little dinosaur there. This QR code will bring you to our website that has copies of these plans there, so you can see what the documents actually look like. They're very long, so we don't typically print out paper copies of them, but we do have them all available on our website. So just a little bit about the funding amounts we get. This is what we've got in the last 5 years for these programs. We get about $2 million in CDBG, about $600,000 or $700,000 in home, and about $150,000 or $160,000 in ESG each year. And we have not had Housing Trust Fund in the past 5 years. It's been a while since we got that. That's kind of a different process. We have to get that as a sub-grant from the state, and they don't always want to give it to us. This is a graphic from the Anchored Home Plan that shows kind of the continuum of homelessness prevention and response. And I have outlined in red the part of the continuum that this program we're talking about now, the Housing Repair and Rehab Program, is intended to target. We do a variety of things around homelessness prevention and outreach and emergency shelter, transitional housing, but the spectrum really goes all the way up to independent, affordable housing, and that's what we're intending to produce and retain through this program. A lot of the idea behind this program is to fix up our existing housing so that it is more livable, better meets the needs of people, and so that people are able to continue to live in their houses because their houses continue to be livable. We have another QR code with another dinosaur there. This one goes to the Anchored Home Plan on the Anchorage Coalition and Homelessness website. So the substantial amendments are a process when we make a major change to one of our action plans. And so we have a set of standards for what counts as a substantial amendment versus a non-substantial amendment. Adding a new program or new project is an action that requires a substantial amendment. So since in this case we're reallocating past year's funds to set up a new program, this requires substantial amendments to those 2 plans. There's a public process with a 30-day comment period, a public hearing, and then it goes to Assembly for approval, and then it goes to HUD for their approval. And at that point, we have the funding in place and can move forward with the program. So what we're doing this time is we're reallocating about $500,000 in 2021 CDBG funds and about $200,000 of 2025 home funds to set up a new residential rehab program that would include funding from both of these sources, and we're hoping to actually include more additional sources of funding in the future as they become available to supplement these and maybe be able to do some types of projects that are harder to do with the regulations around these HUD programs. We have this HUD money available. The CDBG funding is from a couple of projects that either didn't move forward or came in under budget. And so we had some money from the 2021 plan from those projects that we're reallocating. The home funds were set aside in our action plan originally for rental housing development. We're reallocating them to rehab here, but actually there is some overlap there in that in some cases, this program may be able to cover addition of units to existing properties, and that would potentially count as rental housing development. So it's not really necessarily an allocation away from the rental housing development. It's more a way of seeing what's the best use of a relatively small portion of funding relative to the scale of housing development. Drafts these are on our website. We've got the QR code there. To see the drafts again, these are long documents, so we don't usually print them out. But when we do substantial amendments, we highlight in different colors each time we do an amendment, so you can easily see what's changing each time. So if you do want to follow that QR code and look at the PDFs of those documents, you can see the color coding of what we're changing this time. So residential rehab program, we've got just a picture here of what it can look like to rehab a house and the types of repairs that we can do. Goal here is to revitalize existing housing, basically. And so we've got that a little less than $700,000 from those two HUD sources to go into this program to start. That's what it says baseline there, because we are intending to try to get additional funding in as it becomes available to expand the program. But we have these funds available now. We do have to do something with them. And so we're putting them in to get the program up and running. It is in the preliminary stages. And so one thing we're seeking is community input regarding how the program should be structured. There's a lot of ways to do this type of program. We have had versions of rehab programs in the past that have been structured various ways. Other communities we've talked to have programs like this that, again, are structured in various ways, and so we're talking to them about how they do it. Fairbanks has a very successful program that we're going to be talking to them about to see their lessons learned. Some of the things that we need to figure out are to what extent are we using grants and or loans, types of repairs that will be covered, timelines and priorities, types of projects, types of repairs that we want to prioritize. And so to make those decisions, we're adapting one of the tools we're using is a matrix that was developed by the city of Walla Walla, Washington, which recently set up a rehab program of their own that sets out kind of some of the different options for financing structures and allows you to put like weights and compare different things based on different priorities. So this is just an example. What I'm showing here is just an example. We'll roll out an actual version of this and get public input on priorities. But to illustrate this, the types of funding structure options that are considered here, there's a grant, which is no repayment, you just give money to someone. Forgivable loan, a loan that does not need to be repaid if the household meets certain conditions. So you can have a loan that gets forgiven if they stay in the home for a certain number of years. Sometimes this is a step down where like for 5 years, 10% of it's forgiven each year until you get to the 50% forgiven. You can do a deferred loan. This is something that some of our past programs have used. This is a loan where repayment is postponed and typically due when the property is sold. So the homeowner is not paying us back out of pocket until they sell the house and then the loan is paid off out of the proceeds of the sale. And one thing we have also done is combine the deferred loan with the forgivable loan, have it be forgivable up to a certain amount, and then the rest paid off on sale. And then you can also do an amortized loan, just a standard loan with regular monthly payments, including interest over a fixed term. Those are pretty familiar. Another approach you can take is affordability covenant on the property that is kind of taking a different approach to enforcing program requirements. Like affordability is that you have a legal agreement that's recorded on the property that limits resale price or rent, ensures affordability for a certain period, or permanent. And to compare these are just example numbers of how we might weight these different structures according to different goals and priorities. So, One priority might be repayment for future use, so program income coming back into the program to do additional projects, like a revolving loan fund, basically. So for this, grant is zero, you're not getting any money back. Forgivable loan, you eventually, you might get some back if you're not forgiving the whole amount. Deferred loan, you're eventually getting it back, but it's kind of unpredictable. Amortized loan is the best on this because it's very predictable what you're going to get when. And then the affordability covenant just doesn't provide any funding. Whereas if you're looking at minimal or zero debt burden to the household, if that's a priority, then the grant looks best here, and so does the forgivable loan, whereas the deferred loan or the amortized loan doesn't get great. And so you can just see some scores here according to different things: long-term affordability of housing, incentivizing owner buy-in and private investment, and administrative simplicity. In this example, with these scores, the amortized loan comes out as the best solution, but it could be different in different scores, different ways of weighting this. So we'll develop our own version of this as we set up the program and get some input from the community and from stakeholders about what we should prioritize. It's just a very useful tool, and we're thankful to the city of Walla Walla, which presented on this at a conference we attended in the fall, and shared their tool with us that we can use. So potential structure we've been talking about are to have two tiers, and these might be a loan tier and a grant tier, but we haven't decided that for certain. That would be one way to set this up, is to have some projects be loans and some be grants based on project size and or homeowner income. And then coordinating with code enforcement for demolition, because another thing that we want to try to do with this project is identify which properties are worth rehabbing and which ones really would be better to demolish. Code enforcement does have an existing demolition program, and so we're trying to coordinate with them to identify properties that might be best to come into our rehab program or go to their demolition program, based on an independent assessment. And I'll talk a little more about that in a little bit. Nonprofit partners to operate the program, probably multiple ones for these different tiers, because we would likely be looking at different skill sets for different aspects of the program, particularly if we're doing grants and loans. Because we would want to look for someone with lending experience to do the loan portion. We have an existing mobile home repair program with Rural Cap as our contractor, and so their role in that program would be similar to what we're envisioning for the nonprofit partners in this program. And then a separate contractor to do an independent cost estimating and project assessment. And this is really a key piece of the structure, in that this is the contractor that would identify which tier and which program a particular property would be best suited for. So if this assessment shows that the property is not worth rehabbing, it would go into the code enforcement for demolition. If it shows that it would be a fit for the loan tier of our program, it would go to that contractor, and if it looks more like the grant program, it would go to that contractor. So to illustrate this a little bit, I've got a couple slides here with different color-coded roles and partnerships. And then I've got some diagrams showing the relationships here. Basically, we would have an intake point. One lesson learned from other programs is it's best to have a single intake point for applications. This could be muni staff, there could be one of the contractors involved for this role. Then there'd be a contractor for the assessment portion, with estimating experience and knowledge of the construction industry, but particularly on the side of estimating costs and determining what's the best value of work done on a particular property. Demolition, which would be muni code enforcement, that's an existing program. What I'm calling minor repair here would be probably the grant tier of the program, and here we'll be looking at for a nonprofit with housing or construction expertise, someone like Rural Cap or NeighborWorks or someone in the housing sphere. And then for major renovation, which I'm calling the other tier, this might be the lending tier, where really what we're trying to do is get a property owner the financing that they need to upgrade their property, potentially add more units as well as repair. And here we'd be looking for a contractor more with lending and financial expertise, which is why we'd be looking for different contractors for these different tiers. So a couple slides on the potential workflow here, and these are the same color codes as the previous slide. We have the intake process, where we have an application that's coming in through whoever's doing the intake role, as well as referrals from these dots with various colors. Some of them are the other contractors, and some are just, could be any other entity that is aware of people that need help with rehab of buildings. Goes through the intake process to the assessment contractor, and the assessment contractor looks at the property and makes a recommendation. And then that recommendation could have three forms. It might recommend that the property be demolished, and then they would send it over to code enforcement, go into their process. They might recommend minor repair, and we would go to the nonprofit operator doing that grant tier of the program, or they might recommend major renovation, and we go to the servicing contractor doing the renovation. And so we want to be, looking at thinking in advance about how we want to evaluate this program, what kind of metrics we want to track. Certainly number of units repaired. If we do have a tier of it that can create new units, we would want to track that. If we have a loan program where the idea is to bring program income back in to do more projects, we'd want to be tracking the payoffs and how well that process is working, and set that up in advance. So the timeline, we published the substantial amendments in February and the comment period opened. We are now, for the end of the comment period, we're doing the public hearing here. Comment closes on Friday, I think. And then we will send the substantial amendments to the Assembly for approval, aiming for the March 24th Assembly meeting for that. And then once we get that approval from the Assembly and from HUD, we'll have the money in place. We can procure the contractors in April, start up the program in May, and have it. So that's the idea behind timeline and what we have in mind for when we'll have this ready. So February 4th to March 6th, 2026 is the comment period. That's 30 days. How to comment at this meeting? You can take comment now. We have an online comment form, another QR code here. This one doesn't have a dinosaur, but you can scan that code and we have a form that you can use. You can also email that to ahdcsdplans@anchorageak.gov, or you can mail it to us at that PO box number there. So that's all I've got. I'm going to put those comment options back up there so people can see them if they want to jot those down for later, and we'll open it up for comments.
Sam online has a comment. Go ahead, Sam.
Hi, we were looking through the different requirements you can have on all the different types of grants or loans, and there were some examples in there of rent caps. And so one thing we thought about on our team was capping rent, like tying it to the HFC payment standard, which is a little bit higher than fair market rent, or requiring that a property takes vouchers, like that they accept vouchers, could be a nice way for us to help keep those properties accessible to people.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, those are good thoughts on how to set this up and fulfill those affordability goals. Any comments?
Thanks.
I had a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that permitted? Okay, so looks like $692,000 is going to be available. So, are there going to be caps? Because that's not really a lot of money.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, you could easily spend, 80 grand.
Yeah, so that's a great question. That's one of the details we need to work out is what the caps are going to be, because I think we probably will have to cap them. The way we do this with our mobile home repair program is that we have a cap of $20,000 per unit for those repairs. It'll, at least for like the minor repair portion of this, it'll probably be something along those same lines. And yeah, we'll have to cap it at some point and see how to structure that to get the maximum benefit from this amount.
And the other question I have is follow-up, apologies if this is redundant. So is this gonna be, is this gonna be like a pool of applicants that you just sort of selectively choose people from, or is it first to get their sort of application in the door? Or?
Another good question. We have to work out the details of how the application process is going to work. I think, the main thing we want to make sure is that we have a clear process of where to apply, and like a single application, and then they get, put into the system and, prioritized according to whatever criteria we end up going with. And then Darcy also had a note about.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, well, first of all, kind of as noted at the beginning of the hearing, we want your input because this is very preliminary and we want really to hear from the community on what the need is. Jamie, when you talked about the cap, Fairbanks, I don't know if you all saw the article last week, has something going with Fairbanks Neighborhood Housing Services, I believe it is. And they've got something that they're doing with abandoned homes, and they have some pretty cool criteria, like has to be redone within 18 months. But what they're doing is like a $50,000 cap if it's 3 bedrooms and up, and a $40,000 cap for 2 bedrooms and lower. And so we have reached out to Nadine Winters, hoping to hear back from her so we can kind of hear how they've been doing it and what their experience is. Because I think they're using some different funding.
They're using some different funding.
Yeah.
And I did hear back from Nadine, so we're working on the schedule.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I have one other follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Years ago, this was a while back when, the state wasn't semi-broke and others have funds. HFC had sort of a efficiency, housing, energy efficiency program, and then you could sort of apply for funds and apply to that, whether it's windows, or insulation, or your boiler if it's old and it's more efficient. And so I don't know if you still have any of those projects available or any of those funds available, but maybe it might be good to sort of say, okay, we're not going to do the same thing they're doing, and then if you want, you go to there, and if you want something else, you go here, and so that way you're not, using funds in a particular way when other people have them.
That's a great point. Yeah, we should talk to HFC and the weatherization providers. Basically, the status of that is that since the state is now semi-broke, they don't have a state weatherization program paralleling the federal weatherization program anymore. There is still the federal weatherization program, so we will want to coordinate with those contractors that do that. There's different organizations that do that in different parts of the state that we can correspond with and see how to coordinate best. RoCap is the one that does it. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah. So, would this be focused on something along the lines of like home efficiency and functionality, or are we talking like curb appeal? Like, what are we talking about here? Because I know there are different weatherization things in place. And as a homeowner myself, I recently bought a 70-year-old house, and this is my first winter in it, and it's not great. But things were way different in the 50s. And I have no idea what it is.
I just did some repairs to my house and just we will, I think be prioritizing certain safety and issues like, faulty wiring and things that might be like a life safety issue. I think we probably would prioritize kind of efficiency projects to the extent that doesn't duplicate the weatherization work like Jamie mentioned. And yeah, generally, livability rather than curb appeal kinds of things is I think the focus here. We don't want to be, it's not a whole lot of money, and so we want to be focusing it on the highest need, and particularly the things that might cause a home to no longer be livable are the things we want to prioritize to kind of make sure that people can stay in their homes, basically. So, but we're still working out the details of that.
Now, do you have any preliminary requirements that or criteria that one must need to apply
We haven't worked that out yet, but some of those are gonna be set by the requirements of the funding. So for example, for CDBG funds, there's like income requirements for certain of those funds. 80% of their median income is usually the benchmark that they use for eligibility for that funding. Home funding has a different set of affordability criteria, but there are some affordability criteria there. So yeah, we haven't set those yet, but one of the things about using this HUD fund to start this up is that it does kind of restrict us in some ways about what requirements we have to impose. And that's one of the reasons we're looking to try to find additional funding that might have fewer strings attached so that we can do sort of different types of projects with different types of clients that might not qualify under one funding source. More to come, for sure.
I think that's why we had said baseline.
Baseline, yeah. Yeah, baseline. Any other comments? Okay. Well, thanks everyone.
This is Sam really quick. There's the habitability part reminded me, and I think they changed what the criteria is, and Jessica probably knows what it is, but to use a voucher, the unit has to pass a housing quality inspection or whatever, so I don't know if you could tie it to like improvements that are related to those. Just an idea if there's like an existing framework of a standard and you're trying to bring the unit up to a standard.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And yes, HUD has recently imposed a new standard on all their programs. It's called Inspire, and so that standard that applies to the voucher programs actually also applies to our HUD funding and these programs.
Okay.
So that would be a great way to tie some of the prioritization.
Oh, yeah, actually, I just thought of it. Do we have time?
Yeah.
Right on. Okay, so I'm not gonna get too far into this. But HUD HQS standards do not cover black mold. And so they have, health, air quality standards, but it really doesn't cover it. So there are any number of properties in this town which are old, obviously they're in a state of disrepair. Sometimes the roofs are bad, sometimes water's coming down the walls, and the landlords know at this point in time that there is not an overabundance in supply of housing, and so if you don't like it, you have to go. And so, yeah, I don't know if with the inspections, that they can try and look for things like that, because there is an ordinance that passed in 2017. I can't remember the exact one, but it pertained to sort of black mold in hotels. But they didn't apply to residential. The reason they didn't apply to residential because there would probably be a lot of pressure. Yeah. I'm going to think because asbestos abatement and black mold remediation are very expensive. Yeah.
I do also want to give a shout out to the community safety and development team here. All of these fine people have had Inspire training and are Inspire certified.
Okay.
So
I was just gonna say, Inspire does have some stricter requirements than UPSC and H2S had related to mold. If there's visible mold in your inspection, then it triggers additional testing that has to happen.
Usually what happens is people just paint over it. Yeah. Yeah, then it's not visible.
Okay. Anything else? Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. All right, we've got 12 minutes left. We have agenda items under new business. We had 2026 goals and core values. Since we are down some people, I don't know what people's thoughts are on postponing that new business item to next month when we might have the rest of the commissioners here to have a more in-depth discussion about that.
Well, what was the action? To create it?
I think it was just a discussion item to talk about, what are our goals for this year? What are things we want to do? What are some ideas for, resolutions we might want to draft or?
So this is, Shanae has already drafted something for us to look at. I put this on the agenda so you guys can discuss when you would like to do that.
Oh, okay.
To have a more concrete plan, because I don't think we ever really discussed when we wanted that to happen, so, yeah.
So do we want to, we can have it be an action item for the next meeting, or we can schedule a work session. Work session might make the most sense. Could we, and actually that might fit really well with number B also, which is annual report preparations. That might be a nice joint work session to talk about, you know, what are our plans for producing our annual report for 2025 activities, and then what do we have that we want to do for 2026. Would staff be able to support us in a poll to?
Yeah, I'll send out an email with some options and you guys can let me know what works. And just a note about the annual report, it is due June 1st, so that means that you need to vote on it and approve it in May.
Yeah, so I think if we had a work session scheduled sometime, either the end of this month or the beginning of next month, that time should work really well. Any other discussion on either of those new business items? Or does everyone think that's a good path forward scheduling a work session? General public comments? Anyone online for a public comment? Do we even have anyone left that wasn't a commissioner? We do not.
Just commissioners, Jamie stepped over.
Commissioner comments, we will move to item H. Commissioner comment, we can just go around the table. Any final thoughts? I just want to say thank you, everyone, for being so gracious. I'm not the normal chair, and everyone cooperated so quite nicely and made the motions and seconded the motions. Michelle, anything online? Any commissioner comments?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the item I report, is that the?
It's just a standing item that's supposed to be on every agenda. There are no reports that were submitted to me for this.
Perfect. Yeah. Well then, on that note, slightly early, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.
All right. Technically, that's not a debatable motion, so we are now adjourned. I learned that real fast dealing with boards. Motion to adjourn is not debatable.
All right, guys, have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle, you too.